We are going to have some fun here today. We have Christian LaFleur, Instant Nonprofit CEO and founder, and we have Caleb Carr, and we have some fun stuff to talk about. Caleb is with us, how Christian met Caleb, and the difference they are making in the world right now. Christian, I'm teeing you up first.
Hey, Amy. So excited to be here and so happy to be here with my friend Caleb. Caleb's another person who I met sort of through business, but we became fast friends, and I'm excited to be, on a call with the two of you today.
Okay, how did you meet him?
His story is so amazing.
How did you meet him?
Back in, I believe it was 2013, maybe 14, something like that. Anyway, I was at a place called Galvanize. Now, before there was co-working, there was Galvanize, right? WeWork wasn't around, there weren't all these places, but there was this really cool spot called Galvanize, and it was the original Galvanize in Golden Triangle in Denver. And it had an amazing bar and just amazing workspaces. And I got to do a pitch for my company, this company, on a Google demo day. And there were 400 people in the room, and I had always choked in front of even like 10 people. One-on-one, no problem. Speak
Not
to a
anymore.
group, I
Not
freeze.
Anymore.
So, that was a big breakthrough because there were 400 people in the room. And so I got up there and I just went Jersey and had a great time. And I met two of my currently best friends at that event that night. And Caleb is one of them. And so we met, and he came up to me, and he's a student at University of Colorado. And he said, I have this, or was it DU, Caleb? I apologize.
DU. No, you're right. You're right.
So he comes up to me and says, I have a nonprofit, and I need some help with it. And he told me what he was doing, and I was just blown away. So we did his nonprofit, and the rest was history. So he then later we met, and he shared an amazing idea with me, which is now his company. So I would love for him to participate here as well, but that is how we met.
Caleb, I'm so happy you're here, and that was a great tee up, Christian. Thank you. I knew you could tell the story the best. Caleb, did he tell all the truth?
Oh, yeah, surprisingly, no. No, it was great.
Okay, so share with us about your nonprofit. Why don't you tell us?
Sure. So for course of background, I'm a search and rescue tech and a firefighter. I founded a company called Vita Inclinata Technologies, where I currently work, in 2012. And the University of Colorado ended up coming after my company for 75% equity in the business. Christian and I naturally bonded, as we have naturally the same inclination that didn't make any sense. And he helped inspire me to create a nonprofit to actively promote change both locally and nationally for such action, to be able to protect students' intellectual property from being stolen and taken away while they're students at universities. And so thanks to Christian's work, he basically not only supported me trying to figure out how to navigate business, but he was actually truly the first entrepreneur that I've ever met coming out of high school. I never thought I would ever get into entrepreneurship, which is where I'm currently now 8 years later.
Wow.
But with that all in mind, we ended up building a national nonprofit, pushed federal and state legislation to mandate that student creations on campuses would actually be owned by students, and in turn would then ensure that students could innovate on campuses all over the country. And if it weren't for Christian and for the Instant Nonprofit team, it would have never been possible. And thankfully, now looking back, the University of Colorado has relinquished their claim to my intellectual property. We've now built a company that's worth over $200 million and 39 people here in Denver, Colorado.
That is incredible. I mean, you just shared that so beautifully and fluently, but the power of what you did to make change like that, I wouldn't have even thought about. And how many people don't realize intellectual property that was being taken from students in their peak of being in their creative mind and learning and growing. Talk about what it was like before and what you saw.
I mean, for me, I had no idea what the heck intellectual property was. I was 18 years old, just trying to create something for a resume booster. For course of background, I had a friend of mine die under a UH-60 Black Hawk in '09 in the Pacific Northwest. And so went to undergrad, and professor said, well, why the hell don't you fix it? When I explained that it was the swinging of the rescue basket that ultimately caused his death. As that continued to progress, though, and the company started to get legs, I got an email from tech transfer for the University of Colorado saying, oh, by the way, you adhere to this policy of where we own 75% of your intellectual property. Yeah, hell no.
No.
So that was kind of the main impetus that Christian and I really bonded on. And Christian was able to really help kind of inspire me to not only block and tackle state legislation, but also federal legislation. So worked with the Obama administration, multiple senators and representatives on the Hill in DC to push proposed federal legislation, but ultimately were successful in pushing 4 different states across the country to mandate that universities could not come after student intellectual property.
That's incredible. I mean, when you started this process back then, and when you saw it was a big problem, you knew, no way, I'm not going to get my intellectual property taken. Would you have even visualized what you guys have accomplished now, these years later? Like, what is that like for you when you look back and go, oh my gosh, look what we just did?
It's shocking, to say the least. Being an entrepreneur was something I never thought I would ever do. I wanted to go to med school, and then somehow found my way going to law school. And then the company decided to take off somewhere in the midst of 2018, 2019. That grind was, I mean, if it weren't for the mission and it weren't for kind of the grind from the early years of the intellectual property battles, I don't think we would have stuck with it, which is naturally where we're at today. Being able to have staff all over the world, being able to deploy systems that save lives. It's a unique opportunity that we have, and truly without the support of the early times with Christian and his mentorship, both personally and professionally, I would not be where I'm at today, and I stand by that wholeheartedly. And now we've been able to uniquely come back and ask Instant Nonprofit to be able to support us in multiple other areas. They've also built up one of our accelerators as a 501c3, because now we're actively paying it forward to support future aerospace entrepreneurs who are coming into this space as well.
Christian, how is this for you? I mean, wow, that's all I can say. I got nothing else.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey to just be, even what I consider a small part of Caleb's journey. I love there's almost like, I think the quality that I appreciate about Caleb is he's almost like, well, not almost, he's mischievous. He's a mischief maker. This is not about, oh, I'm going to start a company and make money. This was about sort of, sharing a spirit that I carry, and it's why we originally called this company Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Right.
And it's about kind of fighting the darkness and helping the little guy, and really creating heroes out of regular people, right? Like Bruce Willis in those movies, where people are just going along in their life. It's kind of the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell. They're going along in their life. They discover a problem. They go, wow, this is way bigger than me. But that call is too strong not to answer it. And they take the call and then go into the big adventure. And, if I can be, any part of that, be a Gandalf, be a Sam to the Frodo that is Caleb, and throw the ring into the fires of Mordor. I mean, that is what life is all about to me. So there's this like mirth and merriment and mischief about the journey, and there's also dead serious, sober business stuff that you just have to hashtag GSD, as we say around here at Instant Nonprofit. And Caleb ran into some obstacles even in the last year or so with his company, and instead of going, oh gee, coronavirus, or this change, what am I going to do, let's see what happens, he gets on planes and he moves to Washington, D.C., and he makes things happen. He talks to whoever he needs to meet with. He breaks through whatever barrier there is, because he has a mission to save lives with his for-profit company and to help people with his nonprofit. And that is just what I love so much about Caleb, is that spirit of, never say die, and the mission carrying you through things that just seem impossible and insurmountable. So, it's wonderful to hear that whole progression, that whole story, and look back on the years when he sort of sketched this idea on a napkin over a beer at Galvanize years ago, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. And now look at what
we are.
That's wrought.
Caleb, that is powerful. I love hearing Christian talk about it like that, to go, you must be going, wow, you're in the thick of it, you're in the middle of it, this is what you do, it's who you are. I can tell by what Christian has described with you before that it's like this, you just take that initiative and you know what needs to be done. But thank you for what you've done, because you've saved lives and you're a difference maker, and also such an incredible, powerful influence to other people who think, could I do it too? Can I make a difference with just a thought on a napkin? Could I go out and make an impact on the world? And you have. What do you advise to somebody else who thinks that maybe they couldn't do it? What would you advise to them on starting their own idea, becoming a nonprofit, or giving back in a powerful way?
Yeah, for sure. So naturally, I've been asked that from Forbes 30 under 30 and being at the NASDAQ bell and ringing the bell, and everybody asks you, well, what would you say? The classic things that everybody thinks about is failure. Oh, be willing to fail. Okay. Continue to try and continue to innovate. Those are all kind of the cliche things that I would say. For me, the big focus for me is be mission driven beyond all else. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a mission, you're dead on arrival. If it weren't for us knowing and empowering our employee base with the mission of we build technology that brings people home every time, I do not believe Vita would be where we're at today, nor the nonprofits that I own and have been able to help build up to where we're at. From that perspective, the world, especially in the nonprofit space, you don't get the idea of what I call market-driven entrepreneurship, where there's an Airbnb for this or there's a Snapchat for that. The only thing you got is your mission, especially when you don't have revenue, you don't have money, you don't have donations. What else do you got? It's really that passion. It's that mission to be able to succeed and to be able to solve the problem that you're ultimately trying to solve. And that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give to any entrepreneur, whether they're starting as a nonprofit CEO or a for-profit CEO. I would argue that a nonprofit CEO has it much harder than a for-profit CEO, because all you got is that mission piece. You don't necessarily have a market to be able to build it up. You've got to create it. And that's one of the most unique things about creating a nonprofit.
Well, you've done an incredible job. Thank you so much. And
two things.
Incredible.
Yeah, thanks. And I love to be here and to hear this, even though I know this story, and I'll see Caleb on in a couple of days. One thing that really impressed me, Caleb, was you had mentioned some doors that the nonprofit opened. And I mean, I deal with this stuff every day. We've started thousands of nonprofits, but you said that there was some unique doors that were able to open for you, even though you have a, substantial company, a company that is highly regarded. You've been on Forbes, you've been in lots of magazines. I still remember the cover of Westward here in Denver with like the mad scientist, cover. That was awesome. But you mentioned some doors that it opened that your for-profit didn't get open. And I'd like to touch on that, because I'm like, what can your nonprofit do, even at startup, that your $100 million plus company couldn't do? And what a unique way to look at that you told me a few weeks, and I know you can articulate it better than I can.
Yeah, for sure. So in entrepreneurship, you're always trying to find an angle to get a introduction or to try and find a connection to someone. And naturally, nonprofits are known very well for having big names and big donors being able to show up. Well, naturally, there's got to be a reason behind that. And I would actually argue that both being a student or owning a nonprofit opens up those doors, because it removes the barriers to entry. You're not trying to sell something anymore. You are trying to partner. You're trying to advance a mission. Because nonprofits are so mission-based, it opens the door for very easy communications with potential investors or potential partners or potential OEMs that you're trying to work with, like for us with Boeing and Sikorsky and a couple others. That's the kind of, I don't want to call it a game, but the perception that you create as a CEO that owns a nonprofit. Now, I'm fortunate enough to say I'm also a student at the same time as the CEO of a nonprofit, because I can go at both angles and be able to say, hey, I'm coming as a student, I want to learn from you, or I own a nonprofit that helps startup accelerators, you want to join me. Those are very easy asks to get someone on your team and to be able to support you. And once that relationship builds, then you introduce the for-profit side of the business, and you're able to open up doors that otherwise a simple cold email would otherwise not open.
Wow.
As I remembered, that is just so powerful. And Amy, you and I have talked about this in another interview with another one of our founders, Sammy Taggett. And we talked about the concept of network superposition, and I have a talk about how to superposition your life, your legacy, and your future through starting a nonprofit. And this is a perfect example of that superpositioning, where you not only, instead of a business event or like Caleb said, a cold email, which is going to incrementally expand your network. When you start a nonprofit, you superposition, which in quantum theory, quantum physics, is something existing in two states at the same time. You are literally simultaneously leaping into other domains and other strata of people, because the mission completely opens doors that you would never increment your way into through a series of business introductions or emails or anything. And the barriers to entry are down because you've got a heart connection, you've got a cause connection with the people that you're talking with. Mm-hmm. And Caleb, I hadn't talked to you about that concept, but I want to expound on it a little bit when we get together. But it works so perfectly, what you just described, with this concept that I've had, that a nonprofit can superposition you in a number of ways to expand, even if you are a successful entrepreneur. You are a person with a successful corporate career, and you've got a network. It can leap you into completely different strata of individuals and philanthropists, other entrepreneurs, and other just people that you'd never meet.
It's really, really incredible. And it just shows that if you have a mission, if you have a drive, you have a passion, you can have your own nonprofit and use this in such a powerful way to support everything that you're doing, and also supporting your passion, giving back the community. Caleb, what an incredible example of going from A to Z and being a tremendous difference maker. I'm blown away by your story. Thank you for sharing this. And anybody who wants to, if you even think you want to start your own nonprofit, Instant Nonprofit is there. They can answer your questions. They're incredible. They will get this done for you. It is not as scary as you think. They know what they're doing. They can handle it all. But we can make more of a difference and an impact on the world together when we take these kind of missions. And Christian can help you with your mission the same way that he did with Caleb. Thank you both for being with me today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's been great.